Hello, and I am beyond excited to have this conversation. My name is Corinne Milien, and I'm the co-founder of the Winning Edge Leadership Academy. And I am joined by two people that I have had the pleasure to meet today, Kevin Murphy with Wilson and Jahmal from My Block, My Hood, My City. Thank you all for being here today. And I have to be honest, and when I was asked to do this event, I was like, okay, so I've been out here thinking I was radical. And now the message that I try to get people to understand about the work that we do when it comes to serving our communities is starting to be heard. And I'm so thankful for Kevin Murphy and the Wilson team and what you've been able to do and what I've been able to see you all do with the community. And I think when I was thinking about the theme of this conversation, I was listening in on a conversation about the courage to act and the compassion to forgive. And I think that's kind of what this whole theme of this conversation is when it comes to allyship. I think it's a part that isn't often discussed. Like sometimes you have to welcome the allyship, and that's a barrier that people have to work through. And you have to be willing to go through that battle as an ally. So Kevin, you are someone that I have heard that is pretty open, speaking from the heart. You kind of came into this hopefully with some empathy and wanting to be educated. Talk about why that was something you felt was necessary a year later.
Well, frankly, it was kind of a striking moment. And I guess if there's anything to take away from it, it's too bad that such horrific things have to happen to cause you to be more alert and aware to your surroundings. I actually am really proud of our team because we've got some good managers on our team who have worked hard to build a more diverse group of employees. And we've got a lot of work to do there. But what that did last year, especially when some of these things were happening, you got to look people in the eye and ask them how they're feeling. And when you have a more diverse team and you're getting that type of feedback and you can see in people's eyes how they're really feeling, if you're true to yourself and true to your team, you've got to be responsive, respectful, and hopefully enable people to feel safe and heard. And I really think that those types of things are needed all the time. But in the past 12 months or so, it's been more important than ever because life has been really, really hard. And, you hear that coming from me. And then when I hear that coming from people who've dealt with tough things even before that I was probably very ignorant or not in tune, then I think our team did a good job of stepping up and having some really good conversations around how are people feeling, what does that mean, what can we do about it as a team, and how can we push our company and our brand to try to respond and react to that as well.
I think it's so great to hear about what your team is doing. And a part of that, you're talking about listening. And Jahmal, the success that you have had to bring Chicago together and to create good work, a part of that is holding people accountable. Like if you're not holding these organizations or people who are coming in with their support accountable, none of this is taking place. I mean, you have to have some real conversations with people because they may have a complex as to what they think their help should be. And you have to challenge people a little bit, right? To get them to the table and say yes. So why is it important to, on the other side of allyship, welcome that allyship or action?
Yeah, I think that it's just a part of who I am. I didn't know what allyship meant last year. It's a lot of every it's like an education reform word or whatever. And so it's always something to learn. I feel like, this race issue really it really exists politically. Like it's a really political word. And what I've seen is that in this country, we separate people by the color of our skin, right? But in other countries, I feel like they separate people by all types of other things, right? Besides the color of your skin. But I think this this Victorian English eugenics word called race is so prevalent in the 21st century, and it's time for us to change our perspectives. Because I'm always wondering who's profiting because of that, the racial divisions amongst people. Who, is it get clickbait? Who's profiting? Because, and so I'm blessed to actually have went to college in Nebraska because it got me outside of my comfort zone, and it was a fish out of water experience to be the only Black basketball player, on a team full of all white guys, and I felt like they were narrow-minded, right? Because they were isolated in their own environment. If you grow up in Wayne, Nebraska, first time you get to see to college is the first time you see a Black person. You're like, wow, I've never seen a Black person before. And in my head, I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense. You're 18 years old. You've never seen, I've never played ball with a colored person before. I got that all the time. Or talk to my little brother on a cell phone. He's never talked to a Black basketball player before. And then I'm just like, yo, what up? Like, what do you want me to say to somebody on the phone like that? Has never talked to a Black? It's a hard conversation. But what I realized was that just like in Chicago and Inglewood, isolation leads to narrow-mindedness, regardless of where you grow up. So if you never left Inglewood, or if you never left Chatham or South Shore, you might think the whole world looks like where you live, but it's not. You need to step outside your comfort zone and expose yourself to different cultures, different professions, and different cuisines. And then what you'll realize is that you start connecting with people based upon their values more so than the color of their skin. So that's kind of my outlook. That's kind of my approach. And it definitely doesn't always work, but at the same time, that's how I wake up in the morning, is just trying to connect with people based upon our intrinsic values.
Yeah, so a part of that is getting the word out about the work that you're doing to get people to support what you're trying to do. And it's friends like Wilson that can provide a platform to amplify that voice, those stories, share those stories. And it's takes courage to do that, right? We know how social media is. We know how people can kind of get whatever in there. And as a brand, say something, do something, show the work that's being done. It takes courage. So social media is kind of the voice of Wilson for a generation, the next generation, and not just consumers, but influencers. And I would think it would be scary to kind of sometimes take a stand at a time like this, but sharing the story of my block, my hood, my city is something you guys have leaned into, and stories of other groups of people who are doing it in the community, not just coming in and saying, look at what we did, but here are people who are doing it. What does that feel like to be an employee in a position to be able to share that?
Wow, great question, Corinne. It feels like a lot of different things. I mean, it's, I guess, to kind of take a step back, thinking about allyship and action as a journey. It's a relatively new experience for me to be in an organization where, the type of issues that Kevin and Jahmal just referenced are even a topic in a professional capacity, that we have meetings with, our internal team and with external partners to learn about these issues and speak through these issues and, figure out how we can actually make impactful change. So it's a great experience. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning about understanding that my experience is my experience. And Jahmal kind of talked about, if you're from wherever you're from and you're isolated, then you're going to have experiences that are probably fairly myopic, and that are just, centralized to that area. But being in an organization where we talk about social justice, we talk about equity, and, we're really, striving to build relationships with these different communities we serve. It feels like being in the right place with an organization that definitely doesn't have all the answers, but is very committed to making a meaningful impact. So it feels like being in the right place.
Awesome.
Kevin, do you want to add anything to that?
Right. No, I love everything he said. I would just say too, what's important, what's become really clear is, like I said, having the internal conversation and holding each other accountable, like you mentioned before, and that sounds cliche at times, but it's really true. So from our first conversations, we agreed to have more conversations, and we have them fairly regularly. They get easier each time to have the conversation, but each time there's a hard topic that comes up. But I think what that translates to then is, again, going back to, if I can build the trust, or we can build the trust on our team, where people really believe that we're committed and want to do what we can. We can't do everything. We come out of those meetings and we want to do a million things, but we can't do a million things. And G would agree, is probably going to nod in the affirmative, and no one ever thinks we're moving fast enough. But we're seeing action, we're talking about it, we're talking about the next thing we want to do. And it really, to me, then can make you more fearless as a brand in terms of making sure that you're not just being trendy about certain things you do. You know what I mean? You have to, I mean, I feel like we can look in the mirror, and again, it's never enough. We're not even close, and feel at least like we're making an effort and we're making a difference. And whatever that scale is, probably isn't as important as it is that we're doing something, you know?
That's facts. I love that, man. I just want to say church to that, because you really never, it never is enough, but also a lot of times we don't know if corporations, care about justice being denied as much as they care about business being interrupted. So I love that you guys start internally. And I also love that you are just, as a leader, you don't always know what to do, right? Leadership don't mean you always know what to do. You don't know what to do. So you ask questions, you try your best to understand, and you move forward even when you're uncertain. So I love that Wilson is actually moving forward and starting discussions and partnerships.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And I think it's important to hear a success of how, like, as a nonprofit, you navigate the trendy corporation trying to come in and support versus sustaining a relationship.
Yeah, great question. I mean, so it's with us, so we work with 150 students that have that are isolated and they need exposure. That's our exposure is key. And so we take teenagers from very under-resourced communities on educational field trips, and we expose them to different jobs, different cuisines, different cultures, right? If there's 15 currency exchanges in your neighborhood and there's no banks, if you ask a kid, what's a job at a bank? They say, I don't know, I've never been to a bank before. If every billboard in your community says cheap divorce and $6,000 tax advances, I mean, that's not inspiring, right? If there's more technology on your light poles than in the classrooms, like every light pole in the hood has a microphone at the top that listens to gunshots, but there's no laptops in the classrooms, right? When German Shepherds sniff you when you jump on the train every day, like if you grow up in an area where the funeral homes market Louis Vuitton caskets in the windows and they light up at night, if that's where you live, and you think the whole world looks like that, we take you outside of that area and we'll take you to Gatorade and you can learn about consumer engagement. And then a kid will be like, oh, I want to be a consumer engagement specialist, Jahmal. And you'll say, well, why? They say, I never knew that existed. So that's what we do. And if a corporation wants to work with us, I won't let them work with us for 1 year. It's not, no, bye. If you can't be in these kids' life for 4 years, what are we talking about? Because I'm not about to make friends with Markwell and then next year say, hey, oh, I didn't have the funding, so I got to be out of his life. So what I tell corporations is that it costs $25K per school that we work with, 15 kids per alternative school, the lowest performing schools. We want to be in these kids' lives all the way throughout high school, because we believe if we expose them to different jobs, if you show them better, they'll do better. So, hey, Corporation A, if you want to work with us, you got to sign on and be a part of this for 4 years. And that's kind of like, they can't just, here's a couple $1,000 and go, let us do a photo op. No, it's like, if you want to be in this work, this is what the work really looks like. And this is, we want you to be in it for a long haul. So that's one of the ways I've been able to, and then basically just having a plan for them when they come to the table, saying, okay, this is how you can get it. This is how a partnership looks. Here's, just doing that beforehand has helped me streamline the process too.
Yeah. And it's something that I think I challenge a lot of corporations in the work that I do is like, lean into a partner. Like if you're bringing someone to the table that is helping you address an area you've identified as an area of growth for you, for your organization, for your corporation, like don't just do the effort to measure where your gaps are, put in the work to close that gap, right? And I think, yes, Kevin, did you have something?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Because if you can feel pretty good about yourself doing those things and saying, we're going to measure this, we're going to do that. But that's where you go back to, if you really want to do something, and again, there's no patting ourselves on the back here. This is more like waking up or just being further committed. It's do things. And then, you can measure them later, but you got to start doing some things. Plus, if you identify that you have to measure it, it probably means there's a deficit.
Yes. I think it's important to just understand that it takes work. Like at the end of the day, whatever it is, whether you're sharing the story, that's work, that's an action. Share is an action. Whether you're listening, that's an act of listening. If you're bringing people to the table, you're connecting those opportunities to those who, like, if they knew better, they do better. That's it at the end of the day. And how can, part of allyship is understanding that there are those deficits that are created that people are content with sustaining, right? Like people want to be comfortable. Like if I'm doing this, am I giving up this? And that's like terrible. We're never going to create progress if everybody's mindset is this is comfortable for me. Why should I make this uncomfortable for my family? Right. And that's just facts. And we have to work past that. And once you work past that, it gets pretty nice on the other side, right? But it's like, it's a yellow brick road. It's pretty long. You got to work your way over there to that side. And I'm so excited to be a partner with Wilson and this opportunity. This is not the first time I've had this kind of conversation with people at Wilson, which is a sign that you are listening. You're bringing voices like Jahmal's to your consumers at the end of the day. And that's some people may not like that. Some people may say whatever they're going to say about it, but you guys are sticking true to what you want to do as an organization. What do you want to see happen when people are watching this? How do you want people to feel inspired by the conversation we had today? We'll start with you, G. You brought us all together. You made this happen, So what is it that you want people to know to get started with right now?
Yeah, man, I think for the different communities that we're here to show up for, I would like them to know that, we realize that this is a marathon. It's not a trend, that, we're developing our POV with respect to what allyship in action looks like. We're dedicated to taking committed action, be that locally here in Chicago, be it regionally, nationwide. We're really trying to figure this thing out with community partners so that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel and that we don't come in with the savior complex. If there are other, brand managers or, creatives or just, folks that are, working with brands where these conversations aren't happening or maybe they need to be happening more, I would hope that this conversation would inspire them to, take that feedback to their team, to their senior leadership, because everything really starts with the conversation. Every idea, every event, every execution all start with the conversation. And it's so important that these conversations happen and that they come to the world with action that's really impactful.
Kevin, you've been put on the spot. You're a leader at this brand. You've made it known that, hey, my door is open. I'm ready. I want to learn. I want to listen. What is it you want to make sure people really understand about why this is important?
Well, once we kicked that door open, we did learn a lot, or I've learned a lot. I've got a lot more to learn. I probably realized how much I don't know. And one of my team members recently reminded me too that one of the best ways we can be successful here, and this is where people question brands, right? People want to know, are brands being authentic about this or are they not? And this team member mentioned to me how important internal allyship and how we pay attention to that and really stay focused on that. So whether it's how we treat each other or, you know, making sure that we make a real effort, not just a stated effort, but a real effort to diversify and do those things internally so we can have those meetings and people can look at us and say, here's what we're doing as a corporation, but are we really, right? And if we can nail the internal, which again is less, it doesn't cost anything to do that internally, right? Then I think you're more authentic with your external allyship and you can be a more authentic brand, because then you don't sit back and, you know, there's a lot of, we've done it, everybody's done it, right? What's the other guy doing about this or that issue? And then they'll make a safe statement here and there, right? I'd like to think we've turned the corner on that, and that we don't wait to see what other people are thinking, feeling, or saying. We're having that conversation ourselves, so we don't have to kind of put our finger in the air and feel which way the wind's blowing. It shouldn't be that hard, right? So I think if you, if anything, you got to make sure internally you're authentic and making the effort to, you know, to listen and hear people and make sure they feel that. So then you can actually really do good work.
Jahmal, the next leader is going to be watching this. Then everyone can be a leader in their community. What is it that they need to start thinking about as they're trying to create sustainable work and working with partners and creating a space for true allyship to occur?
I would say don't try to be innovative. Like, just do something. Like, what's something simple you can do that'll make a positive impact in your block? Like, what's something, if you're a skateboarder, can you bring a trash bag to the skate park and pick up some beer cans? If you're a lawyer, can you do an expungement clinic in a community? If you know internet marketing or IT, can you help a nonprofit with their website and search engine optimization? What's something simple you can do that you're good at? What's something simple you can do that'll make a positive impact? And what I've learned is that once you start with the simple things, that's how you develop muscle to take on bigger challenges. So forget being innovative, start with something simple. Do that and watch how that appreciates once you start simple. So.
Thank you. I like my saying, I think maybe Kevin, you've heard me say this, G2, you don't have to build a school in Africa to make a difference. Like, do something right now. Do something right now. So thank you so much for this time. I've learned so much. I enjoyed doing the research. I talked to so many of my friends and allies in preparation. So thank you for bringing me more insight into this topic that's necessary to have this conversation with. And thank you, G, for bringing us all together. I appreciate Wilson's partnership in my professional desire to create opportunities for the next generation.